Hello, my beautiful co-creators. Lilou here on the Juicy Living Tour. Today I'm in San Rafael in California with amazing Dan Millman. Hello.
Hello.
This is so good to have a peaceful warrior.
Well, it's nice to be a stopover on your world tour.
Thank you,
Yes.
thank you. You guys, this is a must-read, and you might have already read it. But The Peaceful Warrior, and there's also the movie, The Peaceful Warrior. You have taught through your own life experience so many beautiful lessons of life on how we can open our heart and be peacefully in our heart while being still warriors in spirit. Tell us about the fundamentals of your teachings and how you reach those conclusions and why now you're teaching them.
Many of your viewers may be too young to remember, but there was a TV show called Kung Fu about a Shaolin monk named Kwai Chang Caine. When I was a college professor years ago, I was teaching a course in Aikido and Tai Chi, some more internal martial arts. And I was going to call it the Way of the Warrior, the idea of a way, a path, a journey, a vehicle toward an end. But that didn't quite fit for me. And I was watching this Kung Fu TV show about this peaceful monk, a Shaolin monk, who was also an expert at martial arts. He was the archetype of the peaceful warrior. So I called my course way back then, Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And years later, when I wrote the book, I had traveled the world, I'd studied with various mentors, and when I finally wrote the book, I didn't know what I was going to call it. And then I remember that old man in a gas station I'd met and spent time with. And I said, I think this would be a good title, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. So it wasn't strategic on my part. It was just a part of my life. And I ended up, after many years, first focusing on talent for sports, how we could develop more talent to become better sports people. My interest expanded into the larger world. And so it was, how do we create talent for living, for the events we face in life, relationships, finances, career, making decisions, facing our fears, learning to live in the present moment, and why. So over time, I developed a particular expression or teaching that I continued to call The Peaceful Warrior's Way. And 13 books later, here we are.
13 books and 20 years of that spiritual quest. But originally, you were a champion, an athlete, a trampoline athlete, and then you had this accident, right?
Yeah.
And that changed completely your life. You didn't have that attitude. You were really young. You were 17 years old when you became a champion. Yeah, I guess a lot of things go through your mind at the time.
Yeah, I was a self-absorbed, athlete. I was focused on my training. When I discovered a trampoline as a young boy, I was like born again, really. I just loved jumping up and down. Many people enjoy that, but for me, there was something about it. So I kept doing it, and from that love, I wasn't particularly talented at the time. One would never guess that I might have achieved a lot in that field, but I kept practicing because I loved just jumping up and down and trying new elements. And from trampoline, I won a world championship eventually in London, but from trampoline, I went into gymnastics, and that led me to University of California, Berkeley, and to that old gas station one night. I had actually, unlike what's written in the book or shown in the movie, I had actually shattered my right leg, my thigh bone, before I met Socrates. And I was recovering. I was actually on a cane at the time. And I think that injury, that pain I went through, that difficulty, as many of us have experienced, emotional, physical, mental pain, it opened me up. It made me a little wiser, a little more mature, a little less self-centered. And I started asking bigger questions about life. And I think that opened me up to notice, to recognize that old man, and to start asking him a few questions, which never really stopped.
So he was fictional too, or he was really a physical mentor?
Well, yeah, it wouldn't be correct to say I made him up. He was based on an actual old man I met about 3 a.m. in an old Texaco station on the corner of Oxford and Hurst Streets in Berkeley, California. But I didn't spend quite as much time with him as indicated in the book. He became the archetypal teacher, just like King Arthur had Merlin, and Don Juan, that character, had Castaneda had Don Juan, the Brujo. So there have been a number of stories with an archetypal young student stumbling toward the light and a wise teacher. And Socrates became that representation. But between the time I met him and the time I wrote the book, 14 years passed. And I met other teachers, other mentors. I traveled various places in the world. So that expression through the book, he became the spokesperson for what I wanted to share with the world.
And what are those main teachings that you got now that you share with the world, that you got from Socrates and other teachers?
This is a very interesting question, because you could ask 100 different teachers in the field of personal or spiritual growth, what is the teaching? And they might sound a lot the same. What makes this way a little bit different from many other teachings and books, so that's what I'm going to home in on here.
Yeah.
First of all, because I was an athlete, I just didn't grow up with concepts. I was grounded in the field of athletics. You can't pretend to do push-ups.
Yeah.
And other physical elements. So it kept me focused on practical outcomes in everyday life. So daily life is the school for what I teach. Daily life is guaranteed to teach us everything we need to learn to evolve as human beings. Our relationships. How many of us have seen parts of ourselves and learned about ourselves through relationship challenges? Our dealing with career and finances, the necessity to learn who we are, what are our values, and so on. So daily life is the arena of the peaceful warrior. And it is not my way. It is our way. Mm-hmm. All of us are striving to live, as you mentioned earlier, striving to live with a peaceful heart, but there are times in our lives we need a warrior spirit. Mm-hmm. It's not about fighting, but it's about the courage to be who we are, to express ourselves, and to step forward into life. Mm-hmm. It takes courage to live in this world and to love in this world. So the peaceful warrior's way is about all of us. And that's why I emphasize to people, I'm not here for people to trust me. I'm here to help people trust themselves and the process of their lives. So the way I teach is focused on action. So much in the world today, Lilou, is about finding ways to fix our insides. Mm-hmm. People believe if I just have the right thoughts, if I quiet my mind and have the right positive thoughts, if I just have the right emotions like gratitude and love and peace and happiness, then I can really live well. But I'm suggesting there is another way to practice, which is focus more on what we do. So, sometimes I ask people the rhetorical question, would you rather, and I'll ask you this, would you rather live with someone who was enlightened but acted really crazy and kind of bizarre, or someone who was kind of a little crazy but behaved in an enlightened way? You don't need to answer that question, but it's an interesting question to ask. Yeah. Does it matter more what's going on inside, or does it matter what we do, what we bring to the world?
What we bring to the world.
So I don't ask people to feel happy, grateful, peaceful. I ask them to behave that way.
Yeah, exactly.
We have less control over what we feel moment to moment than what we actually do. Mm-hmm. But that takes a warrior spirit to behave with courage when we're not feeling very brave. Mm-hmm. Or to behave kindly when we're not feeling that way.
It's a great lesson right there.
So that's what makes this teaching a little bit different from many psychological and spiritual teachings that focus on if you just meditate enough and find ways to get the right emotions. Rather than that, it's just focus on what are you going to do.
Mm. So did you get those lessons big chunks at a time, or how did this kind of flow into your life? Because you have continued and you have deepened your research over the years. You wrote 13 books. Mm-hmm. So I guess you have continuously, there's been this chain of new teachers that came in your life, or new teachings. You had a major one with your accident, but then there was probably other happenings in your life that made you grow into is it a deeper spiritual warrior? Is it a wiser? Is it a more connected? Is there different variations of that warrior?
Well, let me answer that roundabout, because sometimes people say, why did you stay in the gas station? Could that old man really jump up on rooftops the way you described? And I say, no, he could not. The Way of the Peaceful Warrior blends fact, autobiography, but also fiction. So it's not a memoir. Mm-hmm. I intend to write a memoir. It'll be not my next book, but the one after, I believe. My books are like planes lined up on the runway. I never know which one's going to take off first. But it's going to really describe the full memoir, the true story, no fiction, but it's going to describe the series of different mentors, very different mentors that I've met who influenced my life and teachings. So my life has really been more, not like so much a cosmic aura smacking me alongside the head, or a light switch suddenly going on in one dramatic moment. It's more been a dimmer switch being turned up and down, up a little more, and 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But I've been sincerely practicing all these years. I keep an open mind, open heart, So I continued to meet new people and get exposed to new information. And I believe life has given me a certain sense of discernment where, because of my commitment to share what I learn with other people, so I've been exposed to some very fortunate mentors. Some people may have heard of, others they have probably not heard of. But each one contributed to what's become an authentic teaching. I have to embody it before I'll teach it.
Yeah.
Not just something I read in a book.
Yeah.
Then it's just parroting words.
Yeah.
So, yes, over time it has deepened. And I didn't write another book after Way of the Peaceful Warrior for 10 years.
Uh-huh.
I had nothing new to say. But then I met another mentor, very exciting information, and I dove in and was writing a book a year, Sacred Journey of the Peaceful Warrior, No Ordinary Moments, The Life You Were Born to Live. And I just, one book after another. And I've never written a book just to have another book out. Each one has to justify itself to me. So there you are.
Yeah. So in the writing, because a lot of people watching too are writing books themselves or want to write a book. It's a dream of many people.
Mm-hmm.
So would you have a recommendation when you're in that writing mode or ready to write a book? Is there, as you said, you have to wait for that right moment? And you have other advice?
No, yeah. I teach at writing conferences. It's a calling of mine. I love mentoring people in writing.
Yeah.
In fact, anybody who contacts us through my website, peacefulwarrior.com, and says, please send me your writing stuff, we'll send them off several pages of very practical, bigger picture guidance about the field of writing. For example, those who like to write novels. Somerset Maugham, a wonderful writer, prize-winning writer, years ago he lived. He said there are 3 essential rules for writing a successful novel. Unfortunately, nobody knows what they are. That's what he said, because it is a bit of a mysterious process. I encourage people to write their memoir. I think if I had a mission, it would be to get everyone to write even a few pages of their life to share with their children or grandchildren or nieces or nephews. It becomes more valuable over time. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean everybody's book is going to get published. It doesn't mean it's meant for broad consumption. But to write the book, we can control our efforts. We can't control the outcomes. Mm-hmm. But by making a good effort, we vastly increase the odds of getting the outcomes we might like. So writing is difficult. It's more difficult than gymnastics, I can tell you that. And that wasn't easy. And yet, by doing that process of putting it down, you've heard of the actor Daniel Day-Lewis. He was in a number of good films. But his father, C. Day-Lewis, was a writer, and he once said, I write not in order just to be understood, I write in order to understand. Mm. And by writing something down, we get a deeper understanding of it. And writing down our life, we get to relive it with the wisdom of our years. Mm-hmm. So I encourage many people to write, whether or not they're destined to get published by a major publisher.
Mm. So now I know that you have other books coming out, like the 4 Purposes of Life.
Yes.
This is very exciting. It's coming out in April 2011. Right. I know this video can be viewed at different times, but tell us about this book and why you decided to write this book, especially in those challenging times right now that we're facing.
Exactly.